here until Patrick is. Is that happening more? Will they have another? Are you presenting tonight, Bill?
No. He's trying to get it all straightened out.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Newmarket Planning Board Tuesday, March 15th, 2022 meeting. First item on the agenda would be the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Typically, this first meeting in March would be our organizational meeting. We will put that on the agenda for next month. We have two new, well, we have one, our chair has been re-elected through write-in votes, and we have an additional member. So once they get re-sworn in by the town, then hopefully that will be done before our next meeting. We'll have our organizational meeting then. Okay. This evening, Michaela, I will have you, a full board membership for voting. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So next item on the agenda, any public comments? These would be for anything not posted in tonight's agenda. Seeing no public comments, I'll close public comments. Review and approval of the minutes of the February 8th, 2022 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Jeff. Is there a second?
Second.
And are there any additions, comments, corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. Bill abstains.
Me too.
And McCallick abstains. Okay. All right, next on the agenda, under regular business, is the application for Seacoast Pool Plastering LLC, Robert McInnes. This is, Bill and Jeff are both this This is a revised application, so I'm going to read that into the record because it is not correct on the agenda. The project proposes to construct a 2,000 square foot shed to store materials related to the pool plastering business, approximately 84,000 square feet of gravel space for equipment storage and associated stormwater practices. The project proposes to combine lots 7 and 8 into one larger lot and utilize the existing entrance off Wadley Falls Road, Route 152 for access. A small portion of the 25-foot poorly drained buffer will be impacted for site access while avoiding impacts to the on-site wetlands. The disturbance to the 25-foot poorly drained buffer will require a special use permit. And again, this property is located a portion of the proposed site and drainage improvements, including bioretention area of the rain garden, fall in the town's Act for Protection Overlay District, which is regulated under section 32-153 of the zoning ordinance. And the lots are located at 446 and 451 Wadley Falls Road, tax map R6, lots 50-7 and 50-8 in the B3 zone. Applicant is here. Just please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Alex Eller. I'm with Ty & Bond, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, representing the applicant. I'm
Can you speak up? Because we have someone taking notes this evening.
Alex Seller. Yep.
Thank you.
And I know the board's familiar with this project, and the board's familiar with John Lorden from our office. And I'm subbing in for him today. What we wanted to do is present to the board the reduced version of the site plan that was coordinated with the applicant, and to address the concerns previously submitted to us. So you can see here, this is the previous version, just for reference. You can see
And excuse me,
Yep.
Because this is being recorded for the
Yes, ma'am.
TV, if you could take the mic with you.
Oh, sure,
When you leave
yeah.
the podium, thank you.
So we just wanted to show this as a previous example of what we had proposed, and to show with the current layout. Current layout is reducing the gravel area significantly, as well as we're reducing the building. We're reducing it from a 6,000 square foot building to a 2,000 square foot building. And we're also removing all of our proposed utilities, including propane, electricity, septic, and well for water. With that, we also are proposing a tiered construction system where we have the lower tier gravel area, which is to the left there, as well as the upper tier for phase 2, which is an effort to reduce the significant cut that was proposed as part of the initial submission. The drainage pattern all remains the same with this layout, and they pulled the building and the parking lot out of the Aquifer Protection District, and just an overall simplification of the project. And this conceptual layout, when it was conceptual, was presented to the planning board, and we had good reception, we thought, for this layout. And our we have not received review comments from the engineer at this point, and our understanding for tonight's meeting is to review the waiver request, as well as the special use permit, and request a site plan approval. And I'm happy to answer questions from the board. See fit.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant at this time? Is there anyone here from the public that has any questions or comments in regards to the application? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comments for the application. So I think what I'd like to do is take up the special use permit request.
Yes, ma'am.
So, just to remind the members of the board, the special use permit request is for the wetland buffer disturbance, and that is for the access portion to the property. And we should all have a copy of that. It is noted at the top from the tie and bond letterhead, S-5132-001. And this is for the special use permit in regards to section 32-155E of our zoning regulations. Do I have are there any questions in regards to the special use permit? This is required prior to even acting on whether or not we would approve the application. Scott, any questions or concerns? Michaela? Jean?
Yeah,
You
just
had a chance?
one.
Yeah.
Under itemized number 3, when it talks about vegetation, and it said that it would be restored, what's the extent of it being restored? I mean, is there a particular, are you replacing it like for like? What does that mean?
Usually when we disturb vegetation, we replace it with a loam and seed mix, so it'd be matching the if there is loam or a type of grass out there, we would do our best to match the existing vegetation.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Can I have a motion to grant the special use permit request for the wetland buffer disturbance?
See if I can do this the right way. I make a motion that we accept the special use permit request for tax map R6 lots 50-7 and 50-8 for 446 and 445.
Water Falls Road.
I'm sorry,
Okay, that's
Water
fine.
Falls Road.
I need a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Can I just make a point? Sorry,
Oh.
I'm Robert McGinnis. These aren't the right addresses. I'm pretty sure the addresses are 446 and
have to just go by what's on the
448. Okay.
Okay, so
Okay, we
it
can-
really is for the application.
Okay.
And I know there's been discussion about that in the past. I don't know why there wasn't a revision to it.
The tax lot numbers are right, but I believe it's
Yeah.
either, I think it's, we'll come back to that. I just want to make sure.
No problem.
Good point.
Okay, we'll just delete the address. Okay, next, I think we should take up the waivers. Let's just do these, let's go through the waivers. So if the applicant will go through each waiver, with the waiver to the required section, reason for your waiver, if you'll go through those one at a time.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I think it would be easier to discuss those and make any motions as a whole unless unless one of the members has an objection to do them individually.
So just read right through.
Yeah, let's just start with number 1, and then I'll see if there's any questions.
Waiver request number 1, the requirement is referencing section 3.02.B6. Parking lots, driveway, and aisles shall be paved. The reason for the waiver request would be the driveway entrance into the site is paved up until the point where it will transition to gravel leading to the equipment storage and proposed shed. This is not a typical parking lot for employee and visitor parking where pavement would benefit users that enter and exit the site. The parking lot will be used for equipment storage, which does not benefit from a paved surface.
Does anyone have any questions in regards to that? Continue, please.
Waiver request 2, the requirement references section 3.6A3A. In all districts except M1 and M2 districts, either newly planted or existing trees shall be provided at a rate of 1 tree per 500 square feet of disturbed area. The reason for the waiver, approximately 200 feet of the existing street buffer comprised of trees, shrubs, and brush will remain between Wadley Road and the shed or equipment storage and will continue to provide a visual buffer into the site. In addition to the street buffer trees, many of the existing trees on site are to remain. Based on a disturbance of approximately 190,000 square feet, we would be required to plant or maintain 380 trees. While we very well may be maintaining these trees, 380 trees, verifying that amount by counting the existing trees to remain would be a very large effort.
Any questions in regard to waiver 2, sorry.
So in other words, you're not planning on planting those trees?
No, sir.
Okay.
Number 3?
Waiver request number 3, the requirement references section 4.08. A scale of 1 inch equals 20 feet shall be used in all cases. We request a waiver request that the match lines would be necessary to achieve a scale of 1 inch equals 20 feet and can hinder the clarity of the proposed plans. Plans have been provided at a scale of 1 inch equals 40 feet, which we believe adequately represents the project.
We're good, okay. That one comes up often. Waiver request number 4?
This one references section 4.10 C5, proposed site plan showing pedestrian and bicycle and transit amenities. And the reason for the waiver, the overall use of the facility is expected to be material storage related to a pool plastering business and equipment storage. The use of pedestrian sidewalks, dedicated bicycle lanes, and transit amenities are not expected to be necessary. Given the site is located outside of the downtown area, these requirements would be in excess of the need for this particular development.
Any questions for the applicant on that? Thank you.
Number 5, references section 4.10 C7, provide landscaping. The reason for this waiver request is the site is expected to be used by employees only and no customers are expected to visit the business location. A buffer of approximately 200 feet is being maintained between the street and the building and parking areas in the form of existing trees, shrubs, and brush.
No questions, continue.
Number 6, this references section 4.10 C13, outdoor lighting, including type, design, mounting height, shielding, and other specifications as needed. And the reason for this waiver, due to the nature of the business, absence of customers on site, and operating hours, lighting for the general gravel area is not necessary.
And 7?
Number 7, references section 4.10 D, elevation view of the front of any building to be altered or constructed. And the reason for the waiver, the 2,000 square foot shed is expected to be of typical prefabricated building. The applicant requested the review of the elevation be a condition of approval until the applicant determines the building to be incorporated.
Okay. Any questions from the board on that?
Could I ask a question on 6?
Yep.
So I was just curious, has the insurance company agreed to that?
I'm going to have to...
That wouldn't really be under our purview.
Okay.
This is relative to
Well,
what our
I
regulations
thought
are.
if the insurance company said, no, you have to have lighting, then...
But that would be their issue, not ours.
But then
Right.
we wouldn't give them the waiver.
But,
Okay.
no, that would be their issue.
Right.
We could just grant them the waiver based upon our regulations, and if we feel that their reasoning for the waiver is reasonable to this board. If you
Okay.
feel it's a safety issue to require it to be lighted, then we wouldn't grant the
Right.
waiver.
No, it's okay.
Any questions or comments from the public in regards to the request for the various waivers? There being none, I'll close public comments or hearing on the waivers request. So does anyone have any issues on the board with granting waivers as presented?
Yeah, I do. I'd like to
Yes.
vote on them separately.
Very good.
So I'm not, yeah.
Yep, we can do that. Okay. Waiver request number 1, motion to approve? And I just need a so moved, was that?
Yeah, so moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, waiver number 2. Is there a motion? To accept the waiver request number 2 by the applicant.
So moved.
Jane, second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion on waiver number 2? All those in favor?
Aye.
Waiver request number 3. Is there a motion?
Val,
Oh,
excuse me, just one quick thing.
I'm sorry.
Opposed.
You're opposed, sorry.
And I'm opposed as well.
Okay. 2-2. Motion fails. Okay. Request for waiver number 3. Is there a motion?
So motioned.
Second.
Michaela, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Waiver request number 4.
So motioned.
Jane makes the motion.
Second.
Second, Frank Scott. Any discussion on waiver number 4? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Waiver request number 5.
So motioned.
Jane makes the motion. Scott? Or need a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I don't know if you guys are switching back and forth. Okay. All right. All those any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All ayes? Yeah. Okay, unanimous. Waiver request number 6 regarding outdoor lighting. Is there a motion to approve?
So motioned.
Jane, motion to approve. Is there a
I
second?
second.
Mikhail, second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Waiver request number 7. Is there a motion
So
to
motioned.
approve? Jane, need a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay. So you have to address section 3.06A3A in a revised site plan, or an updated site plan. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
In regards to Underwood's review, I did get, and I think you were copied on it. You were not copied. So I had a discussion with the engineer this afternoon, late afternoon, in regards to your emails of March 2nd.
Okay.
Okay, and so I think that he was satisfied with how you have addressed the changes and his questions from the prior site plan that were applicable to this. All right, so we'll inform Rob at Underwood as to this waiver request not being granted, and then he'll just have to take that into consideration. And again, this hasn't come out to the board, but you'll want to. Rob's biggest concerns too were in regards to, just so that you're aware, in regards to the use of the property for storage versus a lot of traffic in this issue of the gravel driveway.
Okay.
Okay. I'm also not sure if you still need a waiver in the regulations from the gravel versus pavement. So you want to relook at that. Correct.
Okay.
Bill, you seem to have a question?
Just for.
Oh, I'm sorry, not from that. We already addressed that. No, I'm sorry.
Which waiver was, did not pass, which waiver number? Number
3.06A3A, which is the issue of the
Scale?
the scale passed. It was, the newly planted or existing trees shall be provided at the rate of 1 tree per 500 square feet disturbed areas. They're electing to not want to go out and count to ensure that what is remaining meets that regulation. That was the basis of their waiver, to not count it.
Is that the same letter of waiver request you have before you?
That's what I have here
Okay.
from
Yes.
Ty and
Yes,
Bond.
number 2.
Number 2.
Sorry, we just have a different one, sorry.
Oh, this one is dated March 2nd.
Yeah, the one online is dated November 12th.
Yeah, this is the March 2nd. Okay, no problem. Yeah, you don't have to change the scale. And we really need to change that regulation. All right. Do you have any other questions?
Can I just ask a question?
If you come to the podium,
Can you
yes.
explain the waiver that was denied and what that means? So the whole plan has been around clearing this area, right? So we've got wetlands all around here.
Yeah,
There's big trees all in there. The whole plan has been about clearing all of this since we've been talking for a year plus. So can you just explain to us exactly, so you're saying now that we're not
Nope.
able to clear
No,
all
no,
of
no.
this space, or?
The specific regulation
Mhm.
requires that in this particular district, or any district except for the M1 or M2, it requires that if you are disturbing 500 square feet of disturbed area, for each 500 square feet, you need 1 tree. So you have to ensure that it's newly planted or existing trees. Basically, your waiver request was, I really don't want to take the time to go out and count the trees that are going to be remaining on the lot to see if it meets that particular threshold. I mean, you stated it specifically in here. While we very well may be maintaining 380 trees, verifying that amount by counting the existing trees to remain would be a very large effort. So this board is saying, you gotta go count the trees and make sure you have 380 trees remaining.
So if you guys ever walk the site, I mean, you can't, it's not possible to count the trees with the brush. You can't possibly count the trees until you clear the brush. You can't walk through the brush. So it's a bit, I understand the question, but
yeah,
it's
no,
not
and I
it's
understand.
not realistic. You can't even put on a suit and go walk through the brush to count the trees right now. You can't count the trees until we start clearing, because you can't get through there to count. It's heavy brush, wooded area. It's not a realistic concern. And it's the first time this concern's ever been raised, which is a little troubling to us with the amount of time we've spent together. So I'm not really sure, I understand the question, but I'm not sure realistically or operationally how you can actually do that until you start clearing the site. There's no way to count the trees. You can't get in there. So all I'm asking is let's have a realistic conversation, not in theory, because realistically, I don't know how you would do that based on the way the site is vegetated.
Speaking from my own experience here, I really don't think that this site is extremely unlike other sites that have come before us. If you're requesting that we have a site walk there for members of this board to determine better whether or not this waiver request should be revisited.
So basically what we have to prove is that say it again, so for every...
Well, I'll have your...
How many square feet?
Your engineer can explain the regulation.
Right. So all I'm
and
saying...
there are also different ways to count trees
Right.
than walking on a site, if you wanted to do drones or whatever. There's just different technology.
We'll take it up with our engineers.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously you can come before.
This is very troubling information based on all the time.
Excuse me, but if you really want to, you'd have to come to the podium if you want to be in the record here. Okay. So I would like a motion to continue this application to the, just get our dates here. The April 12th meeting. Is there a motion?
All right, we'll try again. I make a motion that we extend the application to the April 12th meeting for the proposed material and equipment storage area on tax map R6 lots 50-7 and 50-8.
Is there a second? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda. Notice is hereby given for public hearings in accordance with RSA 231-158 for tree pruning and clearing on town and Newmarket scenic roads by Eversource Energy. This public hearing is scheduled for Tuesday, March 15th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at Newmarket Town Hall in the council chambers. This hearing is scheduled in accordance with RSA 231:158 as requested by Eversource Energy to engage in tree pruning and cutting along Bay Road in the town of Newmarket. The proposed activity will include, but not be limited to, tree cutting, trimming, and removal of brush and trees. All proposed activity and criteria for action by the applicants will be presented and reviewed at this public hearing.
My name is Terry Cooper. I'm a work planner contracted by and representing Eversource Energy. The arborist in the area is Robert Berner. I am his eyes and ears out in the field, and I usually I'm the point man for these conversations. So, with the board's permission, I'd like to read the standards and practices for trimming before we go forward, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Eversource specifications call for the removal of brush and limbs which are located within 8 feet to the side, 10 feet below, or 15 feet above conductors. Trees which present a threat to Eversource lines or other equipment because of decay or other defect will be removed on a case-by-case basis. All work will be performed in accordance with accepted arboricultural standards. Eversource has contracted with Aspen Tree Expert Company to perform the actual clearing of trees. Eversource requires that our clearing contractor contact each landowner where the trees are to be trimmed and removed prior to the commencement of work on that property. Individual concerns will be addressed at this time. All brush and limbs cut on roadside locations will be chipped. In wooded, undeveloped locations, these chips may be dispersed into the woods, taking care not to allow chips to accumulate in piles or in ditches. I will also add we're very careful with stone walls. We do not cover stone walls with wood chips, knowing what they mean as monuments, etc. Near developed land, the chips will be blown into a truck and disposed of off-site. If a central dumping location could be arranged, Eversource would be happy to make any unclaimed chips available to the town at no cost. Brush and limbs cut on inaccessible lines will be stacked to the side of the right-of-way and cut low to the ground. All wood will be left on site unless otherwise directed by the landowner. That's on a case-by-case basis.
Could you just explain as to when you say all cut wood will be on site, is it to be cut and stored on the landowner's property or in the town right-of-way?
It's on the property of whoever owns the tree. It's usually the landowners.
So it's where the stump is?
Yeah, it's where the stump is. It's usually, the logs are stacked right at the base of the
Okay,
stump.
thank you.
Anything chippable, we will chip. And then the logs are placed there, and then I have a conversation with each and every landowner concerning log removal. For the most part, logs are left where they are. There are occasions, obviously, if someone has a manicured lawn or if there's a garden there, or other situations where we come to agreements, again, on a case-by-case basis. My job generally, I'm sure you've seen me driving around in the white pickup truck with the blinking lights. As a work planner, I go through and I tag each and every tree that I think is going to be a hazard to the line. This does not constitute driving through, jumping out, tagging a tree, and then jumping onto the next tree a little further down the road. This constitutes me getting actually out of the truck, going down 3 spans, checking each tree around the base, going forward 3 spans, each tree around the base, and then moving down the road. It's time consuming, but that's the best way we can accurately gauge every tree. I only tag trees that I know are going to fall on the lines or have a high probability of falling on the lines between this cycle and the next trim removal cycle, which usually comes every 4 to 5 years. Hopefully I can answer some questions by giving you just a general rundown for a few seconds about how I gauge the trees. I'll start at the base of the tree. I'll look at the root structure, see if it's washed out or damaged. Sometimes there's plow damage. Sometimes it's coming out of a swamp, and I take that into account, especially if the tree's leaning. If it has a weak root base, that's something I'm usually concerned with. I work my way up the trunk. I look for insect damage. I look for any type of mold or fungus. With the emerald ash borer and other critters we have out there, a lot of the ash trees, I'm sure you've seen the blonding or the yellowing on the trunk, and I gauge that as I go up the trees. Usually if I see woodpecker holes, that means there's insects inside. If there's insects inside, it usually started as a disease, then the insects came in, then the birds go after the insects. So by the time you see the holes in the tree, it's pretty far gone. But you don't always see that because you can see a full crown, but the trunk is disguising exactly what the damage is on the inside. As I go up, I look for deadwood that starts to appear over the lines. The more deadwood in the crown, the more diseased the tree is, the further along it is. If more than a third of the crown is dead, I consider that tree a hazard and it will be tagged. Again, in preliminary estimates, as I walk through the town, as I drive through, I will tag the tree with a ribbon. That's the first step. And allow the homeowner or yourselves and the board or anyone in the town to come by, take a look at what I've tagged. That's the second step. And then after we've spoken with the road agent and the board gives the okay, yes or no on it, then the third step would be I would be going out and also discussing it with the landowners. If landowners say no, we don't take the tree. If it is within the town right away, I will discuss that with the road agent on a case-by-case basis.
So at this point, have you actually tagged the trees
Yes,
that
I
you're
have.
proposing to be removed?
Yes, they're all on Bay Road, give or take 50 trees.
Okay. And have you met with Rick Malasky at this point?
I've met with Rick a couple times. I haven't walked with him on a tree-by-tree basis, but I've
Okay.
touched base with him in the last few months. Impromptu, we've had several construction jobs in Newmarket, and I've touched base with him. Bob Berner has been in communication with him quite a bit as well.
Any members of the public here that have a question or concerns about any proposed tree clearing? Any questions from the board?
I appreciate your detail.
So we-
That's very good, yeah, thank you.
Given that the tree clearing work is really for the continuity of power in other utility services, is there any proposal to address a lot of the invasive species that are growing up in the vines, entwining, the different
Vines
things?
entwining, if it becomes as far as removing, IDing and removing invasive species, that's not part of what we do on this end. That might be something that goes forward with Eversource on a later date, but what I'm mainly concerned with is if those invasive vines cause enough threat to the tree or damage to the tree or surrounding trees.
Yeah, I think they've already wiped out all the trees, now it's just the vines.
They'll keep coming. Unfortunately, a lot of people bring stuff in with them, not realizing what's already attached to them. They'll plant plants from other locations, and they'll bring all the fun with them, and they'll go right down the side of the road.
And do you have any opinion about all the vines that are across from the Levelland Creek parking area for the trails?
I'm not sure. I know there's several different vine species, not just poison ivy. There's bittersweet, and there's some other vine species that have been causing some
Very
problems.
extensively intertwined in between all the wires at this point.
Grapevine as well. I have tripped over grapevine many times going up and down the embankment. So I think Newmarket has pretty much its fair share of all the vine species down here, unfortunately.
Any questions? So at this point, what do you need from the board?
I
I
need
mean,
an ex-
our job is to have a public hearing.
Okay. Eversource needs an acceptance that we're allowed to trim and remove trees on the scenic road. The only road that I have tagged is Bay Road. Those are the only location that I have for scenic roads. The list has been submitted to you, but again, anyone's welcome or free to go down and take a look at the trees. I would say a good 90 to 95% are dead. They are ready to come down. If there's any question on them, again, I start at the base and I work my way up. If anyone's looking at the tree, if they want to walk around sometime, the front looks great, the crown looks big. You go around the back and it's missing half its base. So sometimes a second glance will help answer your questions. I will leave business cards with the board, obviously, for any future questions in the area.
And when are you projected to start work on this if approved?
We have two projects going right now with our trucks, and they're spread between Epping and Raymond and Madbury. It probably won't be for a couple months. I can't give you a specific date on it, depending on how quickly the other circuits are going to be completed.
Question, so if a member of the public is watching and they go out and they view a tree.
Yes.
They say, geez, we would like this tree saved. Who do they reach out to? Do they reach out to the town or directly?
Well, they could reach out to the road agent, and that'd be the quickest way to get a hold of either myself or Eversource. They could call Eversource hotline directly, give the location of the tree, and I'm usually the one that comes out for all the calls. Any of your calls where you drive by in the morning, you notice the tree's leaning a little differently from the night before, and you make your call to Eversource, I'm usually the guy that comes out and takes a look at it for you.
Good question. So let's take action at the next meeting, because they're not looking to get out there to do this work right away. We can get the input from Rick. It will just give members an opportunity to go out and look at the trees, and then we'd be just making a more informed decision as to, granting the request. Does that make sense? Okay, can I have a motion to continue this agenda item to the April 12th meeting?
Hereby motioned.
I'll second.
Thank you. Seconded by Bill Doucette. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Thank you.
Thank you.
next item on the agenda. This is a hearing for an application for design review requested by Bingham Junction LLC and Sean McGowan for the renovation of the Rockingham Junction Rail Depot to include the relocation of the existing building to a new foundation on the existing site. The use of the building will be for the owner's professional office space. The work is focused on software engineering, software investing, and advanced data analytics. A small addition to the structure and a storage barn will be added. The property is located at 3 Rockingham Junction, tax map R3, lot 13A in the B1 zone. Just to kind of remind the board of what design review is, as well as the public who's listening. Under section 2.02 of our site plan regulations, the board and the applicant may engage in non-binding discussions beyond conceptual and general discussions, addressing more specific design, planning, and engineering details, provided that design review may proceed only after formal public notice is provided. Statements made by the board members shall not be the basis for disqualifying any members or of invalidating any action taken. The applicant shall pay the appropriate public notice fees as specified in 2.05B and shall provide all required materials and information required for public notice per sections 2.09 and 2.10, the regulations. The design review meetings are strictly optional to the applicant, but such meetings can be helpful in identifying and resolving problems in an application prior to major design investments by the applicant. So it's design review. There's no actual formal application before us. They're here to kind of let us know what they're proposing and to kind of get some feedback from us if you know if they think there might be some roadblocks because of our regulations. Okay.
Hi, good evening. I'm Sean McGowan. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I talked to Diane, and she thought it'd be a good idea because of the historic significance of the building to introduce the project and kind of let you know what we're thinking about and what we're up to. I've owned the property now for about 4 years, and hopefully you've noticed I've put some stewardship into it and kind of cleaned up the area. And I shared with this board before that I purchased the property because there was graffiti on it, and I didn't feel anybody was stepping up to take care of it. So I made the purchase. I've tried to improve the land. I love the trail, and didn't really have great intent for what I would do with the building, but just wanted to do some preservation. As time has gone on and I've been down there doing the work myself, I've met many of the locals. I'm a guy from Newfields, but I've met many of the Newmarket people, the people with the birding, the horseback riders, the snowmobilers, the runners, the mountain bikers, the walkers, and gotten feedback from everyone. Everybody wants me to open a cafe down there and serve ice cream. I have no interest in doing that. If somebody else wants to do it, I'd be happy to sell them the building and they can go on and do that. My goal with the building was to preserve it in place. It's got really interesting architecture, a beautiful granite foundation. I've looked at every option to do that, including getting some variances from you in the past would allow me to make a small addition and some changes. The unfortunate factor is the foundation is not savable in the building. It has significant hydrostatic pressure that is pushed in on 2 sides, and the building in its current format, with its location to the rail, is in pretty bad disarray. After exploring 4 or 5 different foundation approaches, I've landed on the best decision for this building to move it about 75 feet, well, maybe 100 feet, somewhere in that range, to the location specified in the site plan that I provided you. That will allow me to put a new proper foundation under the building. I will harvest the old granite. I will use that in the landscaping in the area to make sure we preserve it and be able to tell the story of what was there. It's a shame that we can't save it, but it's really not savable. In addition to moving the building, my intention is to build a small format addition on the building, which is also on the site plan, to give me a little more office space for when I have colleagues who join me for the day. Beyond that, there's a couple other things I just want to call out to your attention. There's an existing easeway for the railroad, and if you've driven down there and you see the little muddy circle, that's not the easeway, that's just where people drive. The easeway actually runs right in between there, across the grass. So I will reposition that to be aligned with the deed and set that up. Interestingly, there is no parking for the public, and I provide all that parking on my land today. That's not what the town realizes, or a lot of the town people realize. They think that the parking is public. It's not. It's all on my property. There's also no easement for the public currently in the deed to access the trail. So the only easement there on my deed is for the railroad, which I think is a really important thing for this board to understand, because I want to provide an easement for long-term durable access. And I intend to give an easement to the Department of Trails to access the trail, assuming I can get all these other elements to come together appropriately in my plan. You'll also notice on the materials I provided that there's a proposed parking lot in Newfields. This proposed parking lot is on the DOT land. So the Department of Trails has been engaging with a representative of mine, Arlen Chafee, who you may know from town, to come up with a plan to build a parking lot. And I'm very supportive of that. And what I've said to them is, if you will build your parking lot and commit to doing it, I will give you your easement. If you don't build the parking lot, I'm going to use that easement as something I'm going to hold on to encourage them to take responsibility for the access to the trail. Because frankly, it should not be just people parking on my property. So my goal is to help encourage the state to take care of the proper parking they should for access to the trail, to preserve the building by moving it onto a new foundation and adding a small addition, putting up a small barn for storage of my own materials, and then adding appropriate level of parking. With all the work we've done, and this is my architect, Michael Graff, I don't believe we need any variances. So we've been very careful to try and look at all the appropriate setbacks and regulations to not have to ask the ZBA for anything. I'll pause there. That was a bit of a preamble, but I just wanted to give you an overview of the project and our objective.
Any questions of the board?
Question?
Yeah,
Excellent. Thanks for coming. And,
of course.
I like the idea of the parking lot over there. I've heard about it for years. It'd be great to see it happen.
Yeah, it'd be great. It's necessary.
Yeah, definitely. And so, okay, so that my main question, one of my main questions, so the parking that's proposed along the roadway there is parking for your business?
It's parking for the value of the business. I mean, I would say I want to be careful with how I answer this. My objective is to make sure that there's durable access for people to use the trail, and that's why I let people park there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put up signs that say owners parking only, and I'm not going to close the lots. I'm not doing those things. So I assume what's going to happen is that the state will either take longer to build a parking lot than I would like, or there'll be overflow parking like there is today, and people will take those spots. And as long as I own the building, I'm going to be just fine with that. But at some point, I may not own the building, and somebody may not be fine with it, and that's why I really am pushing to have a parking lot, because there needs to be durable, long-term access to this resource. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
would frankly rather not have all those spaces there, and I'd rather have that be just push my land boundary over a little bit.
Right, because reading your plan, it seemed like it wouldn't require a whole bunch of parking if it was office for just.
It's more parking than is necessary, but again, going back to when I I did put the building up for sale about a year ago. Everyone that was interested in the building wanted to build a cafe. So my assumption is the smart thing to do is to set it up in a way that there's enough parking for a future business, even if it's not the business that I would want to run. But I will most likely show up on my mountain bike and not have any parking required.
So the parking shown would be adequate for a cafe?
Would be adequate for a cafe. For a 25-seat cafe, it's adequate parking.
I was curious why that was on there, as you were proposing an office space and not a cafe, and then it mentioned cafe parking.
Yeah. I'm just trying to set up the optionality for the future. This will be a money-losing project, and I'm okay with that. There's really no way to get a return on the old depot. I promise the board you'll never find another person willing to take on this crazy project for public benefit.
Bill, any questions or thoughts?
I only have one, and I think it's premature, but there's a potential leach field area and near a foundation that has hydrostatic issues.
It's a fair question. So the proposed location, we have dug one test pit. There's one test pit that I think will did pass when I dug it a couple of years ago, fits between the barn and the building.
Yep.
So in this location, I'm pretty confident we could put a septic in.
Yep.
That would be part of what we'll come back with.
Sure.
My belief, though, is that the foundation is 8 feet down, and we are not getting water through the floor. We're getting water that's running down the road, getting onto the front of the building, and it's coming through that side.
Yep.
So I'm pretty confident that we're going to be able to get an approved septic, and that the benefit of that is we can keep that further away. And if we put the septic there and I put a fence around it, that section of that little island of the property will also keep the public away from the rail, which I think once the building is gone, that having a septic there and just kind of gating that whole area will improve the safety. So I think it's the right thing to do if we can get it done.
And the land around the junction presently is the lowest on the site, so there's a lot of water collection in there.
Yep.
So if you wanted to correct that, keeping the building in the same location, you'd have to lift the building up, put a new foundation under it in its present location. But then you're still dealing with the proximity to the tracks and the problems that are there.
I think there are a lot of really good ideas in here. I think your fencing is appropriate.
Yeah.
I saw the chain link fence around the leach field area, and I was like, okay, I think I can think of a few good reasons why you might.
Yeah, I think the fencing there, and I'm going to do a really nice fencing in the other areas. I think it'll look beautiful when it's done. You know, the snowmobiles, they're great, but they drive all over my yard and things now. So the whole area needs fencing.
Okay.
Jane, any comments or
No,
questions?
good.
Scott?
No?
Yeah?
Just have a question, like we talked about the south gate and the development in the area. I don't know if it's, I don't know if it could be coordinated somehow with town efforts, to develop the whole area.
Well,
Just an idea.
probably more of a question for Scott, but I mean, nothing has moved
I
forward
was thinking the same
in
thing.
that.
I think it's certainly something that would be worth discussing.
What is that, just for my benefit, that you're talking about the new recreational corridor that you're considering? Is that the comment that you're making, just so I can understand?
Yeah.
So I talked quite a bit with Diane about that. I know she's no longer with the town, but having some format here, like the benefit of this building is, especially with the addition, it has a wonderful opportunity for some artisan space, like having somebody that was doing glass blowing or something and wanting an office there, like those kinds of things that would add to the sense of community and culture in that area are kind of like the long-term objectives for a building like this. I'll do software for another 5 or 10 years, and then somebody will do something much more interesting in this building because it will be architecturally beautiful and it will have all of these details built into it. So I think it is in spirit consistent with that.
I did have several questions.
Yeah.
And I reviewed it.
Yeah, please.
So,
Maybe you'll give us some new ideas.
and I that's what I was thinking that this was for. One thing that I noticed that I'm not sure if it is a concern or not, but where you're going to put the parking spaces, there's a catch basin in that area.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if you're going to harden that surface, and if you add more water to that catch basin, it looks like it outlets over by the railroad. So I didn't know if that would increase runoff onto the railroad.
So I would like to do a shale in the parking area, and I know the town prefers to have pavement, but I think from an irrigation perspective, it makes a lot more sense to do some kind of crushed stone or shale. Right now, it's kind of a muddy mess down there, but I think we could do a lot without, and I think pavement would just be a bad idea.
Yeah.
So my intention would be some kind of hard-pressed gravel and more environmentally sound.
Kind of like railroad bed, right?
Yes.
Does that work for would that work for the state, for their entrance road as well, or do you know if they have a requirement to pave? Or?
No, theirs would be gravel as well. They actually have a preference. So they met, they've already been, it's Newmarket, Newfields has already had a meeting with the state on what would go in there, and it would be a gravel parking lot.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Question I was wondering about, and I could be wrong about the district. Are they allowed to have a storage barn in B1?
They'd have to look at that in the zoning,
Yeah.
B3.
It's
I think we're in B3 here.
it's really parking
B1.
spaces. I don't know
Yeah,
if I don't know
B1,
how
sorry,
to
you're right.
describe it,
Yeah.
but
It's a
like,
garage.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm using the wrong term, it's a little, like a barn garage for two,
Okay.
and there's 2 parking spaces in there.
Okay, yeah, well, I wasn't sure if they were for warehousing stuff, but it just said no, I just noticed in the reg that no
Yeah.
warehouses were allowed in B1, so I wasn't sure.
Got it, yeah, I should probably use my terms correctly, sorry.
Okay, no. So, I think that's basically that. Thank you.
So Jeff brought up one of the, of his kind of questions that you answered, which was regarding the parking lot. So you'll be looking for a waiver from our site plan regulations for that. Any other waivers that you're thinking of at this point in time?
That's the only waiver I'm aware of, and I'm only frankly aware of it because I heard the previous person
Okay.
this evening, so I wasn't aware that I needed to ask for that waiver, but is there a good location for us to understand all of the waivers that might be included or
Well,
required?
you really just go through our site plan regulations.
Yeah,
There's
there's
a
a
checklist,
checklist.
there's a whole
You can't
checklist.
check it
as
off, you
to-
need a waiver.
Right.
Okay, great.
And that would be the same for the, for the zoning review as to really understanding the B1 zone and the permitted uses within the B1 zone, or any uses that require a special use permit.
I understand that it does not from, that this is fine from and you would have to tell me how that works, but my conversations with Diane, this is all fully zoned for personal office, there's no issue there.
So whoever's filling in as the zoning administrator will make that, once the application comes in.
Yeah.
It will go through zoning administration to
Great.
determine whether or not the proposed use is consistent with the zoning,
Great.
okay,
Yeah,
as
my
well as
understanding is it is.
the setbacks and things.
When you get an engineer on board, they'll help walk you through that as well.
Yeah.
We have an engineer on board, so I think when they've been in contact prior to Diane finishing up, I think we thought we had most of the elements beyond the septic done today.
Yep.
So I guess we need to find that checklist to make sure that our engineer has gone through everything, but
Yeah, that's my famous one last question, nice
Jeff,
people.
you can get many
Go
last
for it.
I
questions.
have many last questions. Is the town line bound still in the basement there?
the town line is in,
Is there a stone marker down there?
the stone marker was removed. The marker is there, but I believe there used to be some kind of ornamental cap, and that was removed before I purchased it. Was unknown to me until we removed the floor to see down there, which technically both, I think, Newfields and Newmarket are supposed to check that every some number of years. So,
Yeah, right.
That's for sure.
so it's missing, and it
Is there-
has been for greater than 5 years. But the monument is still down
Yeah,
there.
we
It's
should
not there.
reset that location once there's no building there.
You can reset it, or you can move it to the new basement, which will also go right across the town line. So,
No, just at the corner.
At the angle there.
That'll be something Scott will love to do for you.
it's under the porch. It's set. I mean, you just need, the only thing that's missing is the little, I think there's like some kind of little
Medallion.
ornamental cap.
I didn't see it, I've never personally been down there to see it, somebody in.
Yeah, we've got people in the office that have seen it and actually taken measurements to it.
Yeah.
Have you gone before the the Newfields Planning Board yet?
No, I wanted to, I've been in front of them a couple years ago with a plan which was approved pretty quickly, but I wanted to come here first.
Okay.
So my thought there was just to plan, you may be required to reset it. And
I think sometime down through this process, somebody's gonna say, please have that set.
yeah, I'm just putting you on notice that that'll probably.
Yeah,
It's
when
not
you
a
s-
big deal.
It's
No,
not a big deal, yeah.
the setting, I just want to make sure I'm communicating effectively. The big concrete post is set.
Yep.
It's in there. So I think that there may be, and you would know better than me, there's some little tag. Is
Oh, no,
that
that,
That's not a problem.
that's
the
not a problem.
post.
It's just
Yeah.
if you remove the
the post
building,
gets-
then pull the post out. So the post should stay where it is?
Oh, yeah, the
or
post
do we
will stay.
say-
The
Oh,
post,
okay,
there's
okay.
actually the addition that was put on to the building is where the post is. That part of the foundation won't come up, that concrete will get buried.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent.
It's in that little.
It's by the beach field corner.
Very good. Any other questions of the board?
Are you sure?
I'm fine.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we look forward to seeing a site plan.
Great, we'll get it finished up, and thanks for your information tonight, it was very
Very good.
helpful.
Thank you.
Any of my neighbors have any comments or concerns, issues?
Well, I think we should
Before, I'm gonna I never open the public hearing on this. Is there anyone from the public here that has any questions of the applicant? You'd have to come forward with your name and, name, location.
Jim Ward, 22 Ash Swamp Road. It's just nice to see somebody else renovate a historic building, especially down there.
Thank you.
I know it's not cheap to do that.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. And I will, any other comments from the public? Close the public hearing. Thank you. Okay,
Thanks, everyone.
thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the old and new business. Under old business is the stormwater management, proposed regulations. Eric had talked with Steve Fournier, and the discussion there was relative to waiting for the new planner to come on board, and getting them kind of up to speed and any additional input they may have in regards to the proposed regulations, and then bringing it back before either the task, committee, on this agenda, on that item, or before the whole board. So that's kind of just being tabled until the new planner gets, whoever that may be, is hired and can get up to speed on this. Okay?
Makes good sense.
Right. Yeah, I thought as well. Under new business, the town has received notice from the town of Brentwood that before them they have a application that could potentially have regional impacts. So I literally have not had a chance to even look at this. I don't know if anyone else on the board has. It's just the start of that process, so, we could, please, everyone should have a copy of it, review it before our next meeting, and we could discuss it at that point. Okay. And that's all I have for new business and old business. Anything else? Any committee reports? Conservation Commission?
We met the other day.
Yeah.
We didn't have any applications. Revision Energy came and gave a talk about the Solarize the Community effort that's ongoing. They are also presenting tonight, I believe, through the library, town library.
So, quick question regarding the solar part of it. Regarding the issues regarding forced labor, is that all covered with the idea of what's happening with solar?
We did not discuss that.
Yeah, it's very briefly, it's a major concern. 90% of all solar panels that come or being installed in the United States are originating in China for a particular region of China. I can't say the name and I apologize. But it's illegal to use any solar panels that are used in forced labor in the United States, and most of those solar panels are being stopped by customs officers out in California. That's where most of them come in, and in New Jersey. I only bring this up because that's what I do for a living now. So that is something that the town should be wary of. And it's not like all companies, if they say that they're manufactured in the United States, that's okay, but where are the raw materials coming from? And I know that is a global concern, so I only throw that out there. Okay, and if you need any info, I'll be happy to help out.
Yeah, I was.
Sorry to jump in.
No, that's totally fine.
Okay.
Okay. If there's no other business before us, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Jeff,
I'll second that one.
second by Jane.
That's my job.
Okay, all those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Very good.
Thank you.
Sit too close.
No new members attended tonight?
No, I don't think they've been sworn in. So I would fully expect them to come before us in April. And Bill, thank you so much for your service.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
You're blessed.
Done?
I'm done.
Good. Very good.
Seems like it was, I'm not gonna.
Oh,
No,
okay,
he's
that's
out.
right. Well, virtual then.